What is up, people? Welcome. This is the No1 podcast. I am your host, Coach Jake. All is good, man. Wonderful day. What's up, Iroquois Vet 1985, lyrically indigenous. Happy to see you, man. Today I wanted to talk about this idea of, really, I want to talk about rock bottom and being hungry because it's something that I've noticed not only in myself, but really in coaching. And if you don't know, for a number of years, I was actually a pretty well known. I helped a lot of people with guided meditation, hypnotism, things of that nature to get people to quit habits and bad things like weight loss and cigarettes and other things rather quickly. And I noticed a couple of things. I've noticed this transition over to coaching as well. And, when you want to change, this is the thing you have to understand. If you don't want to change, so let me say hey to everybody. Wrestle House Photos, Lyrically Indigenous, Sleepy B 410, Constant Guilt, Kimura the band, dude, UK in the house. Rock on, bro. Happy to see you. So I want to talk about rock bottom, though, man. Like, this is when people change. This is what I've noticed as a coach, as somebody who's helped a lot of people change, is they change when they hit rock bottom. But rock bottom is different for everybody, okay? So my rock bottom might look way different than your rock bottom, right? So one person's rock bottom might be they're like Breaking Bad, like an extra Breaking Bad. They're like methed out, missing their teeth, living on a flea-ridden mattress somewhere in Albuquerque in an awful ghetto motel. That might be rock bottom for somebody. Rock bottom for another person might be failing an exam, like at school. Okay. So, but this is where people change, is a lot of times is not until something happens that is just, honestly, they're disgusted with themselves. Okay. So I'm not advocating like be disgusted with yourself. I'm not advocating really anything. I'm just talking about the fact that this is where people actually start to transform. Okay. So now, what does that have to do with being hungry? Sometimes rock bottom is when you're hungry. Okay. Now, hungry could mean I'm actually hungry. If you've ever been hungry, and I don't just mean like, oh, I skipped a meal, but like poor, like where you're actually going a couple days without food. If you've never done that, dude, it's awful, and it's very motivating. You're like, dude, that is no fun. Awful way to suffer. And so, I feel for people. I give to a couple of food bank charities because it's just not recommended. But it definitely lights a fire under a lot of people's asses. This is why you'll see people immigrate, say, to the United States. They are literally hungry where they were at for whatever reason, political reasons, something happened with the landscape or something, who knows, but you will actually uproot all that you believe in, all your friends and family, and get the F out and move, right? So why am I talking about this? Because I believe that and tell me if I'm wrong, please hit me up in the chat. That's how I communicate with you. I'm happy to advocate, read for you. Like, I'm on Instagram, 2 different YouTube channels, 2 different 50 Facebook pages. Each has 30,000 people. Instagram, which my Instagram has 20,000. I'm trying to broadcast, get as big of an imprint as I can. Clubhouse, We will be on Spotify. I'm thinking of doing Apple Podcasts. I mean, I'm not an Apple person, but I guess a lot of people are on there. Anyway, so hit me up in the chat if you want to help me here. I would love to hear your perspective. First of all, do you agree with me that a lot of people don't actually change until they hit rock bottom as determined by themselves? Second thing is, I want to know for you guys, like, how do you facilitate that change in another person? Because again, I'm talking about coaching here. How do you try to help somebody out of that? Now, I'm going to share with you. So you have to understand, so I've been a coach both in grappling and in business for a long time. And I guess you could call being a hypnotist was like a life coach. I don't really do that stuff so much because my passions are really business. And I found a lot of people were going into it with misconceptions. You cannot control another human being. You can't. If that were the case, every criminal would go and study the like hypnosis and figure out how to and say, hey, you'll give me your PIN number or some shit like that. It doesn't work that way, okay? The way that I approached it that I think worked tremendously when I was working with people, say to quit smoking, and they had every excuse in the book, was basically making people understand the importance of your word, of your words, of maintaining your agreements, but not just with other people. I think that's crucial with other people. You're never going to have success. Nobody respects a liar. Nobody respects somebody who is a flake or says they're going to do something and then never follows through. I mean, am I wrong? I'm just, this is obvious, fair, right? Like, so why is it any different then when you lie or flake on yourself? To me, I think the way that the world, like maybe establishment or people in general, or the way that like it's commonly understood, like self-esteem is like some sort of right, or it naturally occurs in human beings. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think that this idea of self-esteem and self-respect is earned, just like any kind of respect. Think about somebody that you respect, right? So if you respect somebody, most likely it's because they've accomplished something amazing. Okay, so like an athlete or whatever, it could be a business person, whatever, but they've accomplished something amazing. Or if it's not that kind of person, it is just somebody in your day-to-day life. It's somebody that has lived up to their agreements, is honest with you. They've earned your respect. Okay. They've shown that you're a good person. Well, that respect is no different than the respect you have for yourself. In fact, I think it's unavoidable in so far as, we know people that like are, we know that people are like, Alexa, volume 1. Sorry, guys. We have an Alexa in the house. So, we know of people that will tell you one thing and then do another, or they earn respect. And this is kind of like fucking politicians. I'm going to be honest with you. They trick people into respect, and then people find out about it and they're like, oh man, like, or somebody like Bill Gates. And you're like, dude, you were on Epstein's island? Dude, fuck you. Like, you drop the respect, right? So the thing is somebody else can lie to you, and maybe you are giving this respect under false pretenses. But when you lie, flake on yourself, lie to yourself, screw yourself over, you can't hide from it. You're the one doing the lying, right? So self-esteem is earned. It is, I think this is the idea. Now, integrity, I think, is commonly understood as doing the right thing when nobody else is looking. But I think there's like a connection to self-esteem and integrity insofar as self-esteem comes from integrity, because while you're doing the right thing when nobody else is looking, you're looking. and you respect that, hey, man, I found a wallet full of cash. It ain't mine. I'm going to call the number and give it back to him fully intact, right? So, Alexa, stop. These fucking Alexas. Half the time they don't even work, man. I don't know. Do you guys have those in your house? Anyway, do you think I'm off base here? I think that's a fair way to grasp. Now, so when I was trying to affect rapid change with these people, I'd have these clients say that had a 20-year, 2-pack-a-day cigarette habit. They're going to die. They're literally like suicidal, just in slow motion. They'd come in 2 hours. I'd have them done for life. And it wasn't because any of that bullshit. It don't work that way. It was because what I would have them do is I'd have them imagine basically having a conversation with themselves. And man, that's when the waterworks start, because people begin to realize and confront. It's almost like that man in the mirror moment. It's that rock bottom, right? You know, the moment when you're just so disgusted. We've all had it. You're just disgusted. You're like, God damn, am I out of shape? This is sad. And it actually makes you get going. That, I think, is really the key here. So if you are wanting to affect change in yourself, and I'm talking big change, you need to start considering the idea of holding yourself to a higher standard, having higher expectations for yourself, and being serious about it, not weaseling out, not having excuses, honestly addressing it, right? So, oh man, we got a bunch of people jumping in. We got Z Money, Glenn Jones, Fleximus Prime, Septimus AD, Bushido, John H. MCR, Mark, Warrior Monk Vibes, Kauta Watanabe. Dude, you got to be Japanese, I swear. Anyway, now I think there is a kind of corollary to this that, you know, if you want to hold yourself in higher esteem, okay? But sometimes it's hard to get motivated, especially if you have been hosing yourself forever and you're just like, you have zero trust in yourself, right? This is the people that are on drugs, have gambling problems, porn problems, video game problems, spending problems, relationship problems. Okay, you just don't trust yourself, and probably rightly so if you're one of those people, because you keep fucking things up, right? And you're not holding yourself to this standard, and you're not understanding maybe the importance of it. You think you're getting away with something. And I don't know if Santa Claus is watching or God or maybe, but what I do know is that you're watching. And this is why confidence is earned. Self-respect is earned because you have proven it to yourself that you're capable. Does that make sense? So, like, ever since I was young, and maybe it's because my rock bottom, I had a relatively rough childhood. And because of that, I think I won't call it reckless, but maybe fearless. I wasn't really afraid of death in the way that maybe other people were, or hadn't even contemplated or confronted death in the way that I had to a couple times as a young person. And because of that, I was just like, well, fuck it. It could happen any day. I'm just going to do everything I can. And I got good at just putting myself in new situations and crazy situations. And obviously at the beginning, failing a shit ton, but eventually getting good at that, right? So I think there's a couple things, right? Now, that's rock bottom. I think being hungry is also a huge motivator for that. Now, I look at rock bottom and hungry maybe as slightly different. Both of them do the same thing, hopefully. Not necessarily. There's a lot of people that don't change and they end up being hopeless. This is also tied in, I think, with optimism and pessimism. I'm curious. Comment, please, guys. Comment if you're paying attention here. Do you consider yourself an optimist or a pessimist? Don't give me this realist bullshit. That means you're a pessimist. So either way, are you an optimist or a pessimist? I'd love to see it in the chat. I believe personally, I consider myself an optimist. Now, I think that you have to be an optimist. Let's talk, because I have a large grappling audience. I also have a large business audience. to do both endeavors, I think you have to be an optimist. You have to think you're going to win. You have to think you're going to make money. You have to hope. You have to be positive to be successful, right? So I think mindset is so much about the success here. But I'm curious, do you consider well, better than this? Have other people, more than maybe one, ever said that you're an optimist or a pessimist? I'm just curious what your guys' take is on it. So now, with regards to being hungry, I think it's super important to be hungry. And this is hard. And it's hard only when you don't know this simple trick. Who is it that's going to win? Right? Let's say in a wrestling match, it could be business as well, competition. You have somebody who's the same size as you, weight, height, roughly, same experience level, okay? It maybe has even a similar win-loss record, okay? Similar fitness and shape. All of these things are straight across the board the same. Do you not believe that the person who wants it more at that point, ceteris paribus, meaning all things else being equal, that the person who wants it more, that's hungry, isn't going to get it? And I mean, let's think about this. Hungry. I think there's a great example here from Catch as Catch Can wrestling, the history. My coach, Billy, grew up in the north of England, and he was many people called him the last of the Catch as Catch Can wrestlers because he was the last really shown the entirety of the system out of Riley's gym. Riley later converted to teaching freestyle and considered amateur wrestling compared to Catch as Catch Can. That these guys that were the original catch wrestlers, they were literally hungry. They came from a lower class. A lot of them were Irish or coal miners, and they came from a lower class, a socioeconomic class. They had less money. They were literally hungry. Billy would tell me, those coal miners, the one that would wrestle after mining all day for bets, that their meal, and they're doing physical labor, right? That their meal was toast, beans on top, and an egg. And then they had to go work all day, and that was basically what they ate. And then they'd even wrestle afterwards. So they were literally hungry. Now, these people wanted it more than anybody else. And eventually, some of them started winning these bets enough to where they could quit the mining job and simply survive off the winnings that they won from these wrestling matches. These were literally the first professional wrestlers. This is what they were called. This is where the theatrical acting farm where John Cena and The Rock come out of originated, when it was actually competitive. And these guys were legit hungry to win. And they could make a substantial winning if they won, right? So how do you leverage this idea of being hungry? I think it has to do with expectations, right? So let's say my original goal, a goal of mine, would be to reach $25,000 a month in revenue. That's an okay goal. So what if I want now? Let's say I'm making $5,000 a month right now. That seems huge, right? Right? That's a 5-time growth from the $5,000 to $25,000 a month, say. Now, if I have expectations that $5,000 is huge, you have to have this idea, the idea of aim for the stars, hit the moon. So Lloyd have mercy 666 says, hungry equals having a hard mind. Right. But I think it's important to adjust your goals, adjust your expectations. So let's say that my goal is to hit $25,000 a month. Okay. Or to win a certain championship or whatever, right? Let's use a wrestler, for example. So let's say some kid wants to win the district championship. Okay. For or whatever. he's never going to make it past that if he doesn't then, once he wins that, readjust to win at the state level or regional or national or worlds. Fair? Yeah, and if you win worlds, then you've got to want to be maybe one of the world's all-time greats to keep it happening. You have to make sure that your goal. My belief is that you need to be setting your goals in such a way. This is how you know if your goals are big enough, in my opinion. Your goals should be embarrassing to you right now, right? So maybe you would be very embarrassed to say to somebody that maybe you know or maybe you don't know. It could be your friends, your families, or some stranger that, hey, I'm making $5,000 and my goal is to make 25 grand a month. Maybe you're embarrassed by that. That's a good thing. That tells you, and I mean legit, not just like going through the motions like, ooh, it's embarrassing. Like, ooh, man, can I really say that? Like, that's where you should be. And if you're doing sports, you should be like, okay, I'm at this level. I want to be at this level. I need to embarrass myself with my goals. I need audacious, crazy, ridiculous goals. That's how you get hungry. Okay. But these goals can't be lip service. You actually have to really want it. Okay. Now, I recommend, this is where I think rock bottom comes in. If you can remember, I think this is a great hack, a great trick, is if when you do have one of those true emotionally where you're disgusted with yourself moments, that's when you set a gigantic goal like this. Super duper motivating. Fair? Oh, hey, what's up, Carlos? What's Carlos say? He says, do the work. This is a hard thing, man. I think that a lot of people, we live in a world that we all hear it all the time. Oh man, the world today is so soft. I'm not begrudging anybody. My birthday is tomorrow, by the way. I'm gonna be 49. It's my last year in my 40s. I can't even believe it. I do not feel like I'm almost 50. What's up, Marco? Good to see you, dude. So, I think the world has gotten soft, but that is not a pejorative. That's actually a result of people being hungry and working their asses off to create a world where their kids have a better life. So in just 3 generations, right? The people before Billy Robinson had toast, a scoop of beans, and an egg all day and worked in mines, to today where people are fat and play video games all day long. In like 3 generations, like the generation before Billy, and then now. Now, here's the problem with that. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not anti-technology. I'm not anti-comfort. But I think that the human body, here's the challenge. Technological and like design, technology and design is evolving at a radical pace, so much faster than which we evolved, right? And so I think we end up with all these kind of problems of living, not because of some psychology bullshit or your mom or your dad, or I'm just going to tell you, man, like, I know there are bad examples today and people are having it rough today, but by and large, compared to 200 years ago, everybody on the planet's life is better. Okay. Tremendously. Like there's indoor toilets. Okay. Like there's TV, cell phones, international flights, satellites, like crazy how much things have gotten better. But here's the problem. So many people, I don't think, have learned to manage the boredom. I think this is where we see everybody saying, oh, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, maybe you do. I'm not saying you don't, and then I'm not saying it's pleasant. It might be awful. What I'm saying is that maybe you've not adapted, and your mind, you have to remember, this body that we're all in is a subject. It's still an animal body. We're human beings, but it's subject to the laws of natural selection, and that kind of thing. We evolved to survive in a habitat, right, where there's something known as a type 1 error and a type 2 error in statistics. I don't mean to get nerdy here, but this, I think, is a important concept. I'll simplify it. Type 1 is a false positive. That's when you pee on the pregnancy stick and it says you're pregnant and you're really not. And a false negative is when you pee on the stick and it says you're not pregnant, but you really are. Right? Do you understand what I mean? So you get a signal and it's false. Okay? There's two types of those signals. And that's generally in inductive reasoning and in statistics. Okay? So I'm not meaning to get nerdy, but I think it's important because think of this. It used to be that we're geared. Think about this. There's this concept in psychology called pareidolia or apophenia. These are all names for the same phenomena. When I look at the moon, I see a man in the moon. My mind puts an overlay of meaning on these craters, and because my mind is geared to look for faces. And so I see a face. There's not really a face there. It's like a Rorschach test. Okay? Your mind imposes meaning on things automatically. So we have evolved for millions of years without the comforts of a home, all this kind of stuff, right? Like in the jungles and shit. It was crucial. If we heard a rustle in the leaves, man, there could be a bear or a tiger or a snake, and man, you need to be paranoid. Okay. Now, in terms of type 1, type 2, that would be a type 2 error. There's a rustle. The type 1 would be there's a rustle in the leaves, and I'm freaked out, and I look, and there's nothing there. That would be what people are suffering from with anxiety right now. They're freaking out over nothing, but that's a vestige. You know how like monkeys had tails and we all have a tailbone still? It's called a vestige. It's something left over from an earlier version of us. That is something that we're dealing with to this day. I think that's where anxiety comes from, right? Now, the error is, honestly, is the type 2 error, where there's a rustle of leaves and you're like, oh no, you tinfoil hat people, and there's actually a spider or snake or a tiger behind the rustle and you get killed, right? So a false signal. Oh, we got Philip up on Facebook piping in. Let's see. What's up, Philip? Hi, Jake. I agree with what you said. Having realistic and measurable goal to reach is key, but even more important once reaching that goal is raising the bar a little higher to a new realistic and measurable goal to push yourself to the next level. And then he says, spot on, brother. Thank you, sir. Now, I'm going to actually just take a little bit of a tweak on that. And I'm going to say, maybe we need to look at what our idea of a realistic goal is. Because look at the mile. For the longest time, people were like, it's not realistic to have a 5-minute or a 4-minute mile. And nobody could break it until somebody was like, well, fuck your realistic shit. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you by and large, Philip. I'm more concerned about the definition of realistic because I'm going to be honest. I have a buddy, great guy, love the guy. And we're texting back and forth. And honestly, it's about guns and some other stuff. And he's both of us are advocates for self-defense. But he's very pessimistic about the future. And he always falls back on not an argument, but a definition. He's like, I'm just a realist. And I'm like, dude, I mean, I deal with reality quite well. I don't think that, pessimism, like equating pessimism and realism, but a lot of people do that. Okay. And this is also where I'm like, maybe the word realistic here in terms of goal setting, maybe that's actually holding you back. Just concept. Because I agree with everything else that you're saying 100%, Philip. And I appreciate you piping in too. Please more. Maybe I'm wrong. You more than welcome to debate with me. What's up, Coach Sigma? Brian Voodoo. Happy to see you guys. So B Black, what is up, man? Good to see you. So I think that it's important for us to realize the importance of like maintaining like a real hunger in terms of like achieving more. It's interesting. So my brand is number one, and it's really a play on words, right? From no one to number one. right? No one to number one. Like, what does that journey look like? How do you become an expert? How do you become legendary? But I want you to understand something. Number one is like a jealous lover, dude. Like, you don't pay attention to being number one, it's going to go find somebody else real fast. So this is part of the thing. I mean, honestly, it's almost like a marriage. Like, you want your marriage to work, you can't just expect the other person that there's some robot. You've got to constantly be evolving with them because you're evolving, they're evolving, but you got to make a choice to kind of evolve together. And that requires a presence of mind and an attention. Okay. Being present. Is that fair? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What's up, Ruthie Sky? Let's see. What is Frankie Bay? Good afternoon, sir. Happy to see you. Where's everybody at? I'm in Denver right now. So to recap, I just want you guys to realize, I think there's a serious importance. I always talk about the importance of definitions. One, for clarity with yourself. I mean, what is the purpose of language? What is the purpose of language? Okay. Language is a tool of thought, and it's a tool of communicating thoughts to other people and also communicating with yourself. If you're the one if you're somebody who's never talked to yourself, I would question if you're actually human. Everybody at some level talks to themselves. So language is super important, and definitions are important. And I also think beyond definitions, I bring up on this show all the time, etymology, the history of the meaning of the word, because sometimes the history changes, right? What's up, Native Ninja? Communication. Yeah, I mean, that's really, but it's not just communication with other people. I think it's also communication with ourselves. This is why we write down our goals. What is writing? Writing is a message to communicate with ourselves, a reminder, to remind. Fair? You see how, like, the breaking down of words, I think is very fascinating. Notice that we talk, so I was talking about rock bottom, and a lot of times that's connected with addiction. Okay? What is the root, the cognate, the linguistic root of the word addiction? Dicto, D-I-C-T-O. Like addiction, like a dictionary, like dictator, dicto, dictate, addiction. So what I have found is that a lot of times things like addiction and bad habits have to do with the way we communicate with ourselves and a lack of presence of mind. Sometimes you don't realize that the things you say to yourself are not actually you. Let me give you an example. I used to work with people that had awful cigarette habits, right? Well, the problem is like, clearly they had come to me, paid me hundreds of dollars to solve this problem for them. And I don't actually do it. I don't follow them around and slap the cigarettes out of their hand. I don't follow them around and give them a tisk and shake my finger at them when they pull into the gas station and ask for some Marlboro Reds. That's not what they're paying me for. What they actually paid me for was to have them recognize, okay, I'll give you the same conversation I give them. Okay, now you could apply this to video games, gambling, porn, anything that you could conceivably consider an addiction. Okay, I don't consider addiction a medical problem. That's very controversial nowadays because there's so much money in selling people these bullshit ways to manage things, when with the power of our minds, we can do incredible things. I mean, look at Wim Hof. Look at what's the quadriplegic wrestling champion? His mind's slipping my mind. Like, the mind is very, very powerful. In fact, the placebo effect is the very that is the basis by which we judge the efficacy of something, whether it's mental or if it's actually working on its own, right? So it's super important. So, what I would say to these people is I would say, listen, so you came to me because you want to quit smoking, let's say, or fill in the blank. You want to quit blank, right? And they would say, yeah, I'm here because I want to quit blank. And actually, I would just say, why are you here? This is how I would start it. I'd say, why are you here? Well, I'm here because I want to lose weight or quit smoking, let's say. Okay, so you want to quit smoking or lose weight. Yeah. Oh, okay, great. So that's what you want. That's your intention. You've made the decision. You, Johnny or Alice or Mary or Tom or Pat, whatever. You've made this decision that you want to quit smoking. You want to stop gambling. You have made a decision to eat less and stop being fat and out of shape. And they go, yeah, that's why I'm here. So, okay. And you clearly want it because you got in the car. You've made this decision. You showed up. You paid me handsomely. Yeah, I did. Okay, fantastic. So let's run through something real quick. Okay. This is what they paid me for. It was to have more of a philosophical insight, maybe. Oh, Philip, what's up? Philip's piping in on where he's from. Wollongong, South Wales in Australia. What's up, Australia? Good day, mate. Okay, and Frankie Bay is in Alabama. Howdy. And then we've got Ruthie Sky saying rock bottom is definitely where you experience the biggest change. Yeah. But why? Okay, so this is something I want you to understand. This person comes to me, they want to quit. They're like, I'm done. I'm like, great. I'm glad you made the decision that you want to quit and you are doing the things to do that, to quit. And I'm glad to help you. Let me ask you some questions here, okay? You want to quit, right? And by this time, they're annoyed with me. Like, who is this idiot who keeps asking me this? Because I'm wanting them to get this. Okay, so let me ask you something. So you want to quit smoking, and yet you keep smoking. And now they're like fucked because there's going to be cognitive dissonance here. Do you understand? And I'm sorry, guys, on Instagram. I know you're getting choppy right now. But the point is this. I asked them, so you want to quit smoking, and yet you keep smoking. Now, what ends up happening here is I end up finding out that they end up having a conversation with themselves. So I asked them, so if you want to quit smoking, and yet you go and you get in your car, you drive to the store, you walk into the store, you pull out your wallet, you tell this person what you want, Camels or whatever, and you open the pack, you give them money, hard-earned money. What is it, like $8 a pack now? You pull out the cigarette, you light the cigarette, you inhale the cigarette. So let me get this straight. You want to quit smoking, or do you not want to quit smoking? Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And then I let them know, okay, listen, don't get down on yourself. I'm going to let you know how things work here, okay? There's an interaction with two parts of your mind, okay? Now, typically they call it the unconscious. I hate that. I think it's stupid. I think it's ill-defined. I don't think anybody really knows what that means, and there's no proof. But what I do think is that there's a Daniel Kahneman, guy who won the Nobel Prize in economics. He's actually a psychologist. I think he's out of University of Chicago. Daniel Kahneman wrote this book called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. So there is this way of thinking that's analytical and slow and methodical, and then the fast knee-jerk. There's two paths that take over our nervous system. When we are stressed or we are presented with something complex, I don't mean algebra or calculus, could be, but I'm talking about like a death in the family, or a fight with a loved one, or a big problem at work, something that is stressful. It's new. You haven't routinized it. It's not a routine, mindless thing like driving and you don't even know. You just do it automatically, not even paying attention. What happens is that when this stress, this new problem arises, that part of your brain that requires complex reasoning to control your emotions, to solve the problem, it says, hey, man, I'm going to go solve this problem. Automatic part of the body, knee-jerk reaction part of the body that's trained through repetition and stuff. The automatic part, you take the wheel for a second. That is when we have excuses, the things that are automatic, the things that we're not present, takes over. Oh, yeah, man, I deserve this. Oh, this, that. You get all this bullshit. So the trick here is when you're stressed, to remember the agreement you made with yourself and the importance of that integrity. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, for those of you on Instagram, it always sucks, dude. The connection with Instagram is always spotty. You could go and watch this show on YouTube. Go to no1.ninja, and the show is, I'll post it there. It's also on Spotify. Look up No1 Podcast, spelled like this, No1 Podcast. I'll have it up shortly after the show so you can hear all this. Now, this is the crucial thing, is to have the personal integrity. That means living up to your agreements to yourself, because you realize that if you want to actually have confidence and self-esteem and really believe you can do things and reach these goals, you have to have that discipline. You have to live up to your promises to yourself, even when things are stressful, right? So I don't know if this is helping anybody. I hope it is, okay? But there is definitely this connection between hitting rock bottom. Now, rock bottom a lot of times is the final level where you break through the bullshit. Maybe it's because you're having a bad health scare. That's a sad place to reach before you change. Sometimes it might be too late. You understand? So this is why you need to set these higher expectations. Make rock bottom higher and not as low, right? Like, love yourself enough to where rock bottom for you is not looking like a crackhead extra on Breaking Bad. No, make it to where rock bottom for you is maybe, getting second place. Do you understand? So it's setting these high expectations. The other part is to maintain that hunger, that those expectations, those goals need to be huge. That's why I'm such a fan of Grant Cardone and this whole idea of 10X. That is, it's this idea that your goals are going to be probably 10 times harder than you need, than you expect. I'm sorry. And that maybe you need to set your goals 10 times higher. And not even because you necessarily are going to hit those. You should try with all your work, with all your mental capacity and your effort and all that you have at your disposal. Okay. But also, setting your goals that high, again, if you shoot for the stars, at least you're going to hit the moon. Because if you were aiming for the moon, you may not even leave the atmosphere. So I don't know if this was useful. I hope it was. I apologize to the guys on Instagram. Please check it out on YouTube. The connection's better there. I'm not having any of the connection issues like I'm having with Instagram. And you can check us out on Spotify. You can check me out on LinkedIn. You can check me out on Facebook. Kind of trying to be ubiquitous. So I hope you guys are well. And tomorrow officially begins my last journey around the sun in my 40s. I will be 49 tomorrow. I can't even believe it. So, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace out.